Welcome to Spirits Podcast, a boozy dive into mythology, legends, and folklore. Every week we pour a drink and learn about a new story from around the world. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Julia.
And we are here for another edition of Hometown Urban Legends, your urban legends, in fact, with our friend and colleague, Brandon Grugle. Brandon, how are you?
It's me, but I'm a ghost.
Oh, Brandon, when did you become a ghost?
I thought I'd join in the spirit and the mood, you know? So
Yes.
I died last night.
That was really
Oh.
kind of you to really
How?
get on brand. Like, I feel like a lot of times when people guest on podcasts, you know, they really don't prepare. They just kind of go on and they're like, oh, I'm just going to talk and answer questions. No, Brandon came prepared.
I go all in. Amanda, I died by sheer force of will.
Great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Same.
It's a good start.
So now it's coffee ghost and regular ghost.
That's very
Yes. Normally, Brandon's partner shows up in the background of our Join the Party recordings, because, of course, Brandon is not just head of production at Multitude, but our co-host and the editor and sound designer of Join the Party, and composer, for that matter. But we typically just hear her making coffee downstairs, and so she is, of course, the coffee ghost.
And sometimes an arm just appears through the doorway behind
Yes.
Brandon, hands him a
Yes.
cup of coffee, and we're like, oh, the coffee ghost is delivering today. Very good, Brandon.
And honestly, if she doesn't have coffee, she is a ghost. So it works
true.
on multiple levels.
good.
It's great. Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So, Brandon, apart from cohabitating with one, what is your relationship to the supernatural? I know of you as a very rational person, someone very interested in science, but you are also from the most haunted state, Texas. So can you tell us a bit about your relationship with ghost stories, urban legends, and the supernatural?
Yeah, I realized I was thinking about this this morning when I was getting ready, and I realized I don't think we've talked about this, but I very am a rational, logical thinker, but I fucking love the supernatural.
Nice.
It is my favorite my favorite podcast, at least one of my favorite podcasts is Spooked. I love a ghost story, even though I may not believe in any of the stuff, because of that rational side of me. I want ghosts and cryptids and wizards and shit to exist so badly that I just listen to all of it and I want it to happen. I love it. It's my favorite thing.
Hell yeah, Brandon. I love that. You
Yeah.
know, sometimes you can love a thing even if you're like, I'm pretty sure this thing doesn't exist. But hey, it's fun to tell stories about it. And that's what half this podcast is about. So
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Well, are you prepared to pass judgment and commentary on the urban legends of our listeners today?
I'm so stoked.
awesome. Amanda, do you have a juicy one to start us off with?
Oh, I sure do. This one's hot off the presses. It came into the inbox a mere 12 hours ago at the time of recording. I know. It's hot. And this comes from Abby, she, her. And the subject is the haunted Lemp family mansion.
Uh-oh.
I love a good haunted mansion.
Brandon, a famous Disney person, loves a haunted mansion.
And this does take place in the state of Missouri, which Google's doesn't share a border with Texas, but is only one state away.
All right.
Honestly, everything that's not on the coast, they're all in one state. It's fine.
It's true.
It's a big middle. We Google mapped the other day, Minneapolis to Chicago, and we were like, fuck, what is in the 7 hours in between those things? So far.
Land.
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 All right. So Abby writes, hey, spirits. I'm a longtime listener, first-time writer into the show. Your episodes have kept me company on long drives out of town and at my desk while I try to tune out my coworkers. Recently, I was listening to a Hometown Urban Legend episode and recall the writer mentioning something about not being able to get an alcoholic drink at their grocery store. I was so confused at that part and realized then that other states have responsible liquor laws. You see, I live in Missouri, where you can get a drink pretty much anywhere. We are famous in the region for grocery stores, drugstores, and even gas stations throughout the state, which sell a wide variety of beer, wine, and liquor because there are no state-specific limitations on selling alcohol for, quote, off-premises consumption. You can also have open containers in a moving vehicle.
What?
Okay, that seems wild.
That seems bad. Not gonna
seems
lie,
bad.
that seems bad.
I thought this was how it was everywhere until I listened to that Urban Legends episode. Why the lax attitude toward alcohol here, you may ask? Any guesses?
Missouri has some sort of first off, this is where my thought process is coming from. I found out recently that the Jack Daniels factory where they make the Jack Daniels exists in a dry county. And I was like, what? You can't sell any alcohol except for at the Jack Daniels factory, which is wild to me.
Yeah, Eric Silver mentioned that at our staff happy hour because he has visited before. And it means that it is a wild destination with locals buying whiskey because that is the only place you can buy whiskey in that county.
Yeah.
Or
That's
anything.
Brilliant business strategy, honestly.
Right?
So maybe there's the opposite. Maybe there's another place in Missouri that makes famous alcohol, and that's why the liquor licenses are so loose? ?
So I think of the opposite way of like, I think all other states have like Christian, religious motivated blue laws. And I've only been to Missouri once. Well, maybe a couple times, but I've been to Branson, Missouri to see the Osmonds perform.
Okay. Interesting.
And it's like a very family-friendly state. So I
as
don't
long as you're
know.
white.
Yeah, I mean, that's true for America, Julia.
Yeah, well.
True. Well, here's the answer. Anheuser-Busch, the largest brewing company in the world, was created and now is headquartered in my hometown of St. Louis.
Called it.
Well done, Julia.
Thank you.
They're at the forefront of keeping Missouri's alcohol laws as relaxed as they are. Don't we love corporate lobbying? I roll.
Love it.
All this is to say, it reminded me of another local brewing company just across the street from Anheuser-Busch with a very haunted history. Let's get into it.
Let's get it.
Let's do it.
Some background for those of you who haven't been to St. Louis. We have a plethora of three things: potholes, Catholics, and beer. The story I'm going to tell you is about the Lemp family and their brewing business.
All right.
Brandon, does this jive with your experience of Missouri?
Well, my dad's from St. Louis.
Oh.
So I've never been and I don't know anything about it.
Amazing.
Good. We can ask him at our next live show. St. Louis is on the bank of the Mississippi River and was built upon a complex of natural caves, which were once used for the lagering of beer by early German immigrant brewers.
Hell yeah.
The cave's natural, cooler temperatures were attractive to brewers before refrigeration was invented. This, plus access to the river's water supply, made for a very successful business model. Johann Adam Lemp, one of these German immigrants, began a small brewing business in 1840, and by 1870 it was the largest brewing business in the city and known worldwide with its products shipping internationally. It was, uncreatively, named the Lemp Brewing Company. He built a large complex above the cave system during his time on the south side of town, and later his son, William Sr., added an adjacent mansion for the family.
I feel like brewing companies nowadays they have creative names, but like back in the day, you know, all the original ones were just like, this family, they're the ones that brew the beer, so we'll name it after them. Like, obviously.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
like your local cobbler, your grocer. It's just like it's the people you go to. That's fair.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the brewery complex still stands today, over 27 buildings, in fact, though in varying states of condition, of course, and so does the family mansion nearby, which is said to be one of the most haunted homes in America.
Why?
From 1900 to 1949, 7 untimely deaths occurred in the immediate Lemp family, most of them within the mansion. In the midst of the company's success, the Lemp family experienced the first of many tragedies when Frederick Lemp, William Sr.'s favorite son and heir apparent.
Never good that you have a favorite son. Never good that you have a favorite son.
Seriously. Died in 1901 at the age of 28. William Sr. himself died of grief in 1904. Later on...
Wait, hold on. How much time was between that and grief?
3 years.
3 years is not... That's not dying of grief.
I think it was like the steady decline of old age precipitated by untimely grief.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so that was 1904. Later on that year, the company was passed to his son, William Jr., Billy. Tough when the junior is not the favorite, right? Yeah. It's like you got the name, kid, but you don't have the mantle.
Mm-hmm.
The rumor is that he had a child through an extramarital affair, and they were supposedly hidden in the mansion's attic/servant quarters all their life, eventually dying up there.
Classic gothic stuff.
Some parasite shit.
Yeah. There's a side note here that people have claimed that they have seen a young face staring down through the attic window in that mansion. And then Abby says that if anyone ends up researching this, there are kind of like dark and ableist roots to this myth. So, you know, content warning if you do decide to research it. When Prohibition started, Billy ended up abruptly closing down the brewery, of course.
Billy.
Business was obviously not booming, and the family members didn't necessarily care about keeping the brewery open for longevity because they were all already very, very rich. So who cares about the workers' livelihoods or whatever? They'll figure out something to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where their money's going to come from now. They already have money.
Exactly. So there were then 2 further deaths, the Billy in question and his sister Elsa. Both were apparent suicides that perhaps were murders. There was a lot of ambiguity and suspicion around both of those deaths. Someone died of a heart attack in 43. In 49, somebody else died by suicide in the house. And the remaining brother Edwin moved to a nearby town and lived a long life, dying at the age of 90.
Good for Edwin. He was like, I don't want any of this family drama. I'm a move.
I don't want any of this stuff.
I'm going to come down firmly on the side of those two were murders.
Yeah. Seems fair.
It seems that way. A lot of violent gun deaths. Also, maybe not great to keep a lot of guns in that mansion where people keep dying of gun violence. But who can say?
Yeah.
So, after Charles's death, the mansion was a boarding house for a time. But as residents complained of ghostly knocks and phantom footsteps being heard throughout the house, it was hard to keep it running.
Yeah, kind of classic.
I mean, you got to market into it. You got to start saying that as part of the attraction to the mansion. You don't. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Come on.
Yeah, stay in your own haunted mansion. It's definitely a category on Airbnb.
I think now it is, but like in 1950, when this was probably a boarding house, I don't think there was as much like ghostly tourism as there is now. So
Cowards.
I get it.
Everyone
Cowards.
in 1950 was a coward.
Yes.
Well, they ended up pivoting, guys, because in the mid-70s, the home was bought by a developer in hopes of starting a restaurant and inn. Workmen often told stories during the renovation of tools vanishing, strange sounds, and a fear of being watched. Some workers even refused to return.
Ooh.
Currently, the mansion is a restaurant and small inn where the creepy encounters are apparently a still common occurrence. While I have yet to dine or stay overnight and can't share any personal experiences, I've heard lots of different ones from friends and other acquaintances as I've grown up in the city.
Okay.
Remember the cave system I mentioned earlier?
I do remember the cave
Always,
system.
Abby. Always.
Oh man, was like being like, I gotta go lager the beer. Was that like code for?
I gotta go kill a man.
Yeah. The family had taken advantage of the caverns not only for work, but also for pleasure.
Oh,
There were
God.
beer gardens for entertainment,
Okay.
a swimming pool, a bowling alley,
In the cave?
yes,
Cool.
and even their own private tunnel for the Lemp family to use to get between the mansion and the brewery.
Yo, that's tight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this. When you said for your pleasure, I was like,
I know, like
Weird
orgies
sex
and like
cave.
cults. Yeah.
Yeah.
Abby adds, before you ask, no, you technically can't go explore them. Many of them are closed up from building the interstate, but if you're in the know, you can supposedly find an existing entrance or two. Obviously, I'm not in the know.
The thing is, the phrase technically did a lot of heavy lifting in that
It did.
statement.
The thing about caves is if you just start digging, you will get a cave.
That's fair.
Eventually,
One way in, but if you're lucky, more than one way out.
fingers crossed.
But guys, hope's not lost, because one exception to this is the haunted house that opens every year to the public underground, the brewery inside the cavern system.
Holy shit, that sounds awesome.
Julia, is this the best idea ever?
I gotta admit, I had no desire to go to Missouri until just now. That sounds terrifying and dope.
What about the Osmonds, Julia?
I don't even know what that is, Brandon. The fuck is that?
The haunted house is incredible. It is one of the largest haunt setups in the region and very, very popular. Unlike the mansion, I have been to this spot along with doing some above ground ghost tours on the brewery property. The vibes are 0 out of 10. It is fully too creepy for me, and I somehow return every year anyway with a faint hint of bravery until stepping foot onto the property.
Babe, stop. Stop doing that to yourself.
We'll go instead. It'll be
Babe,
fine.
no.
I like that they finally leaned into it, though. They finally got it, you know?
Yeah.
So there you have it. I don't know about you, but I haven't heard of many places that have a haunted house, haunted mansion, haunted caves, and a haunted inn all rolled into one. If you're ever in St. Louis, take some time to drink a beer, eat toasted ravioli, and maybe run into a ghost or two. Just watch out for the potholes.
Is toasted ravioli a thing?
The spookiest part of that story is toasted ravioli. What is
Yeah.
that?
Is that like not fried ravioli, but kind of fried ravioli?
Breaded, deep-fried ravioli, created and popularized in St. Louis.
Okay.
Okay.
All
Okay,
right.
I'm into it.
Yeah.
I mean, sounds great.
Yeah, I did it.
I'm into it.
I'd try it.
The thing that like surprises me about that story is that like that like adage of like relationships where you're like, if something goes wrong in the first relationship, it's sad. If something goes wrong, the same thing goes wrong in the second relationship, it's bad luck. If it's same thing goes wrong in the third relationship, like look at what you're doing wrong.
You're a problem.
You're the problem.
I have not, but I'm with you.
Like 9 deaths into this house, you don't look at the house and be like, do we have any like loose boards in the floor? Or
Do
like,
we have a slow gas leak happening? Is
Yeah.
that why everyone is like being driven to gun violence? Like what's happening
Exactly.
here?
Electrical currents. I totally agree. And that's why I love the anecdote about Edwin, who lived to a ripe old age of 90 in outside of the home. Like Edwin, self-care king.
I love it. I love it.
Shout out to Edward for his self-care.
I want to be in a haunted house so bad so I can like go science on it where I'm like, all right, if I move the house 10 feet over, does it still get haunted?
Mm-hmm.
If I tear down the house and build a new house, is it still haunted?
Mm-hmm.
And just try all these variables and figure out what the actual haunting is, and then go from there.
Well, because sometimes, and this is going off of the idea that perhaps, Brandon, I know you don't think ghosts are real, but the idea that like a lot of times, sometimes a spirit will like inhabit a house, but then will attach itself to a person or a family. So even after they move, they still like experience the haunting and stuff like that. So I think it depends on the type of ghost.
Yeah.
That's my hot take.
Yeah. But then I nail down the type of ghost, and then I can relate to the ghost better, Julia. And then we become best friends.
Well, Brandon, the best way of living with a ghost is being as polite as possible to that ghost, because politeness and ghosts work well together. That's something we've learned from the show.
Just like I am with my Google Homes.
Yes,
just
correct.
in case.
Just in case the actuality happens, Brandon's ready to go. Well, I have one, and we can hear about the first part of the story now, and then we'll get back to the second half when we get back from our refill. How does that sound?
Ooh, a
Sounds
cliffhanger.
great.
So this is from Talon, and they have titled this email, Old Spaghetti Factory, and I was a creepy small child that saw ghosts.
Yay!
Yeah. So Talon writes, Hi, I'm kind of a new listener. I've been listening to the podcast for about 1.5 years now, but not quickly, and in order from oldest to newest. Bless your heart, Talon. Bless.
Also, Talon hasn't even gotten up to the Spaghetti Warehouse Spectacular.
Well, I have hit the Spaghetti Warehouse Old Spaghetti Factory saga.
There
I'm
you
listening
go.
to episode 54 as I write this.
No, Julia, I'm talking about 64, which is the special spaghetti episode.
Yeah.
Maybe they're talking about 64 and just did a mistype, but
Well,
potentially.
because we read many stories about
Yes.
the Spaghetti Factory before we
That is true.
built up to the grand climax.
So Talon writes, though, that they wanted to throw their 2 cents into the conversation. So I'm from British Columbia, Canada, and we have a old spaghetti factory location in Abbotsford, the town over from my hometown. I can say that we definitely never had an old trolley car in our location, with many question marks at the end of that statement.
Bummer.
I can, however, confirm that my parents freaking hated going because they didn't like the vibes.
Ooh.
I, as a child who often saw ghosts in my bedroom, will elaborate later, loved the old spaghetti factory, and also I just have a lifelong love of pasta. Same, fam, same.
Don't we all?
I don't specifically remember any ghost stories out of the Abbotsford location. I do, however, remember that the parking lot was very creepy, but probably unrelated.
I must say, when we went to a physical spaghetti warehouse, it was a creepy parking lot abutting a sort of like unprotected railroad. So that checks out for me.
And other listeners have sent in pictures of their local spaghetti warehouse and spaghetti factories. And I remember we did a Google Earth view, and one of them was right near a very scary, like, tunnel that went underneath train tracks. And I was like, oh, no, never going to that one.
No.
Not in my life.
Maybe their real estate strategy is affordable warehouses next to, I don't know, freight lines for the rails and for the warehouse. I get it.
I mean, the profit margin on pasta is not very high, so
No, it's cheap.
You gotta
It's cheap
figure
to
it
get
out.
pasta.
Yeah.
Talon also says, I do remember that apparently the pasta was stored in a giant clawfoot bathtub in the kitchen because
What?
they used so much per day.
Are you sure you didn't dream that down?
That sounds incredible.
I don't know. My parents told me so many weird things as a child. So that might have been a lie from your parents, Talon. I'm just going to say right now, might have been a lie from your parents.
I mean, it's so weird that, like, it has to be true, though, right? Like, why would you make that up?
Just for fun, I once told my sister that there were clowns in the wings of airplanes that put down the landing gear. Like, if you look carefully, you can see them sometimes. And it was the one bullying lie I ever told my siblings.
That's very funny.
We've talked about this on the show. I don't understand why people enjoy lying to children. I get it, like, but at the same time, I'm like, I feel like I would have been so pissed at my parents when I found out that they like lied to me about something that I truly believed until adulthood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Brandon, we rarely get the chance to poll a youngest child. Did your siblings tell you any wild lies?
Well, that's what I was thinking about when you were saying that. Is like, I don't think. Well, one, my oldest brother is like 8 years older than me, so like,
Not a lot of
by
overlap.
the time I was like,
Yeah.
sapient, he was in college. My sister and I were really close, so she didn't really like screw me over like that. But I have convinced my little niece, who is 6, that I think that the soda brand Sprite is pronounced Sprunk.
Oh my God,
that's
So now
good.
every time she loves Sprite, so I just like, oh, you want a Sprunk?
That's really good. That's perfect. It's perfect. Banal, but she may be in college when someone's like, you realize he was fucking with you, right? And she's like, oh no.
But she knows it's not called Spronk, right? She just thinks you're a little silly man who thinks it's pronounced Spronk.
Who can say? I'm very silly, Julia.
Incredible.
I do what I can, Brandon, to defend you, but sometimes I'm just like, maybe your little niece thinks you're a silly little man. And you're like, probably. So I'll tell you a little bit more about Talon and their ability to see ghosts as a small child. But first, why don't we grab our refill?
Let's do it.
Hey, this is Julia, and welcome to The Refill. First of all, of course, we have to thank our newest patrons, Lilith, Amanda, and Cecilia. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You join the ranks of people like our supporting producer level patrons, Alicia, Ann, Brittany, Fruity Chick, Hannah, Jack Marie, Jane, Nieselkins, Lily, Matthew, Megan Moon, Nathan, Phil Fresh, Rico, like Captain Jonathan, Malachi, Cosmos, Sarah, and Scott, and of course, our legend level patrons, Ariana, Audra, Bex, Chibi Yokai, Morgan H, Sarah, and Bia Me Up Scotty. And you too can join our Patreon at patreon.com/spiritspodcast and get a bunch of cool rewards like recipe cards for every episode, bonus Urban Legends episodes each month, and so much more. Check it out at patreon.com/spiritspodcast. I also want to let you know, hey, we have new merch for sale. You can get our 5 new tarot designs on a black t-shirt plus an updated logo t-shirt at spiritspodcast.com/merch. I'm really happy with these. They look so amazing. The incredible art by Zoe is just like so highlighted by these awesome shirts, and I really love the classic black color. So I think you're going to love them too. Again, that is at spiritspodcast.com/merch. I also have a recommendation for you, which is, hey, I have bad insomnia sometimes. And one of my favorite things to do when I know that I'm not going to be able to get back to sleep is read some books on my phone. I use Libby to access my library and use ebooks through that. It's fantastic. And I have a guilty pleasure. It's not even guilty. I have the pleasure of reading some really fun romance novels when I can't sleep. It's a great way to like lull me back to sleep eventually. And my recommendation for you today is a book called Artfully Yours by Joanna Lowell. Is it the 3rd book in a series? Yes. Did I realize that while I was reading it? No, it really doesn't matter. I really liked this one as a kind of entryway into the series, which I'm now in the middle of right now. And Joanna Lowell just like hits the spot for me in the combination of like art and Regency romance and plot twists, and it's a lot of fun. So check that one out. And while you're checking things out, check out Pale Blue Pod. Pale Blue Pod is an astronomy podcast for people who are overwhelmed by the universe but also want to be its friend. Astrophysicist Dr. Moya McTeer and comedian Corinne Caputo demystify space one topic at a time with open eyes, open arms, and open mouths from all of the laughter, but also the jaw-dropping information about the universe and space. By the end of each episode, the cosmos will feel a little bit less, too scary, and a little bit more, ooh, so cool. There are new episodes every Monday, and you can get them wherever you get your podcasts. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. And hey, listen, life is full of really tough choices, and sometimes trying to figure out what the best path forward isn't the easiest thing in the world. Sometimes you're dealing with decisions over your career or relationships or basically anything else that can really impact what's going on in your life, and therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate those difficult decisions so that you can move forward with confidence and excitement. And I know that sometimes it's really hard to have conversations with someone. I really appreciate my therapist for like letting me talk to them for like a good 10 minutes before I really get into the heart of the problems that I want to face, because I have to build my way into it. And luckily, therapy allows me to have that space to kind of build up to what is frustrating me and what is being difficult for me at the moment. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/spirits today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/spirits. Now, summer is in full swing, and hopefully that means for you cookouts, dinner parties, barbecues, all kinds of stuff. And I would recommend, if you are going to be hosting people, rather than having to run to the bakery or run to the store or proof bread in your kitchen while trying to do a bunch of other stuff, being ready with a freezer full of fresh, ready-to-bake, delicious options from Wild Grain. Wild Grain is the first ever bake-from-frozen subscription box for sourdough breads, fresh pasta, and artisanal pastries. And unlike typical supermarket bread, Wild Grain uses a slow fermentation process that's easier on the belly, lower in sugar, and rich in nutrients and antioxidants. And every item bakes from frozen in 25 minutes or less. And here's something new. You can now fully customize your Wild Grain box so you can get any combination of breads, pastas, and pastries that you like. If you want a box of all bread, all pasta, or all pastries, hey, you can have that. Plus, there's now also a new option for a large box with 12 items in it, which is perfect for bigger families. You'll never run the risk of getting bored with Wild Grain. They're constantly adding new seasonal and limited time special items to add to your box. And for every new member, Wild Grain donates 6 meals to the Greater Boston Food Bank, so you can eat good and do good at the same time. All you have to do is sign up at wildgrain.com/spirits and choose which type of box you want to receive and how often. And it's super easy to reschedule, skip, or cancel. Plus, for a limited time, you can get $30 off the first box plus free croissants in every box when you go to wildgrain.com/spirits to start your subscription. You heard me, free croissants in every box and $30 off your first box when you go to wildgrain.com/spirits. That's wildgrain.com/spirits or use promo code SPIRITS at checkout. Now that it's summertime, I've been thinking a lot about vacation, and honestly, sometimes I just want a little staycation. And I think to myself, why can't I vacation in the comfort of my own home? Well, I can, because with Brooklyn's Staycation Sale, it is here to keep you cozy all summer long with 15% off their award-winning sheets and home essentials. Now, according to Wirecutter and Good Housekeeping, Brooklyn has the best in-class bedding. So if you don't trust me or their 100,000 five-star customer reviews, you can trust these experts who have done the research. Brooklyn uses only the highest quality materials for all of their products, such as long staple cotton, so that everything they create is built to last. And Brooklyn is the perfect way to build your own indoor oasis to escape the heat. The options are endless, so you do yourself a favor by simplifying your shopping with bundling bed, bath, and both. You can save time and up to 25% when bundling your new favorite home essentials. And listen, I've talked about my Brooklinen, my buttery softs. I sleep hot, but I also like to be really bundled up. And the breathability of my Brooklinen sheets and my whole Brooklinen bedding set makes me feel like I'm on vacation, like the luxury hotel style kind of bedding, but knowing that it's like my own bedding, so it's not kind of weird or gross. I love it. So the perfect time to upgrade your sleep routine is now. Shop 15% off in store or at brooklinen.com. That's BROOKLINEN.com. Miss the sale? Visit brooklinen.com and sign up for emails to keep up to date on exclusive offers, new products, and much more. And now let's get back to the show. We are back, and Brandon, I have to ask you, what have you been enjoying lately in terms of drinks, bevies, cocktails or mocktails or otherwise?
Well, Julia, and if you are a subscriber to the Multitude newsletter, I'm going to talk about my CSA in the newsletter.
Ooh.
But I got some cucumbers in my CSA, and I didn't know what to do with them. So I was going to make some agua fresca, and I was like, hold up. What if I make Brain Blast. What if I make a concentrate of agua fresca? It means I don't add the water. I just do the juice.
My guy, so good.
Yeah. So I made like a cucumber mint concentrate, and then I made like mint syrup, like mint simple syrup.
Yes.
And so I've been adding those two things and mezcal and celery bitters,
Yes.
which are very good.
Brandon.
For people who are not familiar with Brandon's work and his oeuvre, Brandon loves a tincture,
He's a tincture man.
a fancy bitter so much. He has like a apothecary's cabinet worth of tinctures and cocktail accoutrement.
Mhm.
The first time Eric and I ever went over to Brandon's apartment to record during the party, which is where we used to record during the party back in Queens, we rolled up and we're like, Brandon, what's this beautiful bar cart filled with unmarked bottles? It was just filled with tinctures. It was incredible. And since then, every time we visit, the first thing Eric asks is, let me see the tinctures.
Mhm, mhm. And it's just been ever growing since then. So
Yes.
I've recently been trying to get into the tincture game a bit more, Brandon. And recently we had a friend over to our house for the first time. So I had a couple of like unmarked bottles that were like filled with stuff that I know what it is just from like sniffing it.
poison.
But yes, poison. So he like wandered over and I had some like orange blossom water in a diffuser. And he just like looks at it and he like picks it up. He like gives a little sniff and then he sprays it and he goes, oh. And I'm just like, yes, that is orange blossom water. He's like, nice. I'm like, thank you.
You know that you've gone to the cocktail dark side when you have atomizers like sprayers. That's
Yeah.
when you know. That's the line where you're like,
That's
oh, I'm
the
in
line.
this for life now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's fine.
Right now I have one with like saline spray for my piercings. Like, is that good?
If you put that in your cocktails, then yeah.
I was going to say, honestly,
I could.
it'd be pretty good.
Saline
It's
spray
sterile.
is like this summer's new thing. Like people are adding that to like margaritas and stuff.
I
like
mean,
it seems really
wow.
good.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm,
Alright.
mhm.
Amanda, you're ahead of the game. You don't even know it.
Hey.
So let's get back to Talon's second half of the story, which was I was a creepy small child that saw ghosts! Exclamation point.
Yay.
My second story / anecdote is about me being a so-called creepy child. I'm so not sorry about being a former creepy child because, hey, content. Anyway, I, as a child, had what I called my, quote, Victorian man that lived in the corner of my room by my closet that faced my bed. I remember seeing him. He had circle glasses, an amazing hat, and a generally amazing Victorian getup. Honestly, he was never very mean, and I only ever got bad vibes when I had already had a bad day. So maybe this like ghost was just like very on vibe with you, and so when like your partner is grumpy, so like you end up being a little grumpy as well because you're just like, why can't we just be happy at the same time? You know.
And Julia's partner is also a Victorian ghost. that
Yes,
faces the wall.
famously, Jake Ziti is a Victorian ghost. However, my friends did get to meet Victorian man's creepier friend when we were teenagers.
No.
Yeah.
I have a question actually real quick.
What's up?
Because I just realized while we were listening to the story, a Victorian women ghost, much creepier than Victorian man ghost, right?
No, I think the Victorian woman ghost is actually less creepy because usually she's like a victim of like domestic assault or like, and you feel bad for her. A Victorian man I would have bad vibes from because I would be like, would you die on the Titanic, you fucking capitalist?
You're totally right. I was picturing like a goofy, like, hello, governor, but you're absolutely right. Like, any man in the Victorian age definitely did a semi-murder at some point in their life.
We just talked about this with the last house that we were talking about. We're just like, everyone but Edwin, bad vibes.
Yep, you're right. You're right.
Interesting. I feel like I would definitely know what I was looking at if I saw a Victorian woman ghost, and I'd be like, oh, you probably have some tragic backstory. Let me, make my peace with you. And that's, a little jolt of scary. I think if I saw a Victorian man ghost, I would laugh. I think that's a lot less scary to me. I think I'd be like, look at that funny hat, because they never went anywhere without hats. And these days, nobody wears a hat.
That was my initial thought too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that's what I think.
Conspirators, let us know if you think Victorian woman or Victorian man would be a creepier ghost.
We can all agree that Victorian non-binary, not creepy at all, dope to hang out with.
Yes, incredible.
Exactly. Any kind of gender fluid or non-binary ghost. I'm like, tell me about your experience and let me tell you about stuff now.
What's your vibe? So Talon's friends met the Victorian man's creepier friend when they were teenagers. My friend Abby claimed that she experienced a sleep paralysis in a paranormal way, she clarified, and met a very tall man in an also Victorian getup, but was definitely not my guy because I had saw him that night. Also, the figure that Abby saw had long black finger-like things from his hands.
No thanks.
And reportedly hovered over her until he decided it/he was done and decided to let her go back to sleep.
No thanks.
No, not good?
Nope.
Not a big fan of creepy long shadow fingers?
No thank you. Have either of you two had sleep paralysis before?
I think I had it probably more often than I realize now as a child. Like, I remember I would like be frozen in bed staring at a thing on like my wall, and then later on be like, oh, it was like the sweater that they hung up there or something like that, but like could not move out of bed to save myself. So
No, which is why I'm me and Julia's Julia.
woo!
I'll have to come on at some point and talk about my spooky demon sleep paralysis episode.
Brandon,
the time is now. Sorry.
the time is now. You're already on the podcast.
You're on the podcast. Let's do it.
Talk about it now. Actually, Brandon, let me finish this
Yeah, I
story.
want to know the story.
And then, no, this is perfect. And then you can talk about this. So they decided to name him Philip. And as I have never seen Philip myself, I cannot entirely vouch for his existence. But I do believe Abby because she refused to ever sleep in my living room after she saw him again the next night.
Don't blame
So
him.
Abby saw Philip twice in a row. That's no good.
That's serious.
No thanks.
Anyway, we honestly love the Victorian man and are iffy on Philip. Now, a side note before we leave Talon, which they said, holy shit, what is with creepy grandpas and bloody bones? I should not be listening to this episode at 2 a.m. All right, I hope y'all are well and never meet Philip, though he did not seem entirely threatening. ... Talon.
I mean, those long fingers disagree with that statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but like he didn't do anything creepy with the long fingers. The long fingers were just there.
He simply had them, but that was enough
Yeah,
for me,
yeah.
Julia.
I mean,
All right.
my first thought must be great at piano. Second
Doesn't
thought
have to stretch those fingies at all.
could be creepy. Could be
Yeah,
creepy.
could be
Great
creepy.
guitarist, great pianist.
All right, Brandon, the time is now. We have to hear about your sleep paralysis experience.
Yeah, so when I was in middle school-ish, like that period of like transition from like 5th grade through like 8th grade, you know, I guess I just wasn't sleeping enough. I must not have been sleeping enough, but I got into the habit of I would get home from, maybe it was high school, because I would get home at like 2:30, you know, when like high school gets out earlier than other schools for some reason. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
But I would get home and my mom was a teacher, so she would still be at elementary school, which went longer. So I would frequently go up to the game room and just like take a nap while watching TV almost every day. But I guess I just wasn't getting enough sleep or something, because I would like fall into these weird, like almost like stupor sleeps. Like they were very uncomfortable. Like I would fall asleep and I could sort of like, the description I gave my dad when I was asking him what the fuck was going on with me, because he's a doctor, was like it felt like the neurons firing in my brain. I could like feel them.
Whoa.
Like these like pulses of electricity, and they were like painful. Like they weren't like painful like someone like stabbing me, but they were very, very uncomfortable and painful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I knew that like I was falling asleep badly, right? Like something was going wrong and I couldn't get out of it. Like I couldn't wake myself up.
Oh, no.
And so this happened a lot. Like I would get that sort of mild sleep paralysis. And then the first time I actually had sleep paralysis, I was at my dad's house because my parents were separated. And I took a nap on the couch. And on waking up, I was fully conscious, but like couldn't move, obviously. Got sleep paralysis. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? Can't open my eyes. And in your head, I always think of, you know, you have me on the podcast, so I got to mention Supernatural. I always think of that Supernatural scene where Dean goes to hell for the first time, is in chains. In your head, you're like screaming. You're like, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. And you just simply cannot.
Wow.
Which is awful. When I had the actual experience, I was at my home and had gotten home from school and went to take a nap on our couch.
Brandon, you gotta stop napping. This
Brandon,
is the key
I'm
here.
sorry. I have to bust in. You have to stop napping on couches,
Stop
my guy.
napping
Come on.
on couches.
I was this is what I'm saying. I just clearly wasn't getting enough sleep. This is why high school should be later and not end at 2:30.
I know.
Adolescents need more sleep. But took a nap on a couch and thought I had woken up, right? Like,
Sure.
I had the perfect image of my living room in my head, but I woke up and I couldn't move, right? So I'm like on my like side. I can see the wall. There's a wall in front of me. And then like off of my peripheral is where like the bedrooms and stuff are. So like there's like a hallway and like that's where stuff happens in the house. And
That's where the stuff happens.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
and on that wall, I see like a shadow start to form.
Oh.
and I can't move. And then ultimately, like, you start feeling this, like, presence, right? Like, there's no other way to say it. Like, you feel like the enormity of this presence. And for some reason, I eventually come to realize that, like, there's, like, probably, like, 10... We had, like, pretty high ceilings, so, like, 10-foot demon thing coming out of the back room and, like, coming towards me. And you can't move, and you can't do anything. You can't scream. You're at the complete mercy of whatever this demon thing wants to come do to you. And it was awful. And it felt, in the moment, I'm sure it was, like, 2 minutes or whatever, or a minute, but it feels like it's, like, 20. It's horrifying.
Yeah, that seems bad, Brandon. Brandon, seemed like a bad time for you.
Yeah, it was not good.
Did you stop napping on couches?
I didn't.
Brandon?
But I did eventually start getting more sleep.
Okay. And then the sleep paralysis basically stopped?
Yeah. I think,
All
like,
right,
once I
that's good.
started getting actual restful sleep,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
The neuron thing you mentioned reminds me of, I had growing pains a lot when I was like, 11, 12, 13, as did my siblings, where just like shooting pain, like your nerves are on fire, like in your shins and ankles and feet in our cases, or elbows sometimes, as just like your body grows. And that's just a thing that happens to adolescents, which is like we went to the doctor. He's like, yep, growing pains, it happens. And I was like, what?
What do you mean it just happens?
I feel like the doctors or like some sort of class in school should tell you these things of like,
Yeah.
hey, you might experience growing pains. Don't freak out. That's normal. Hey, some people get sleep paralysis. Is this? Hey, don't freak out.
Instead of just don't have sex, that's the only way that you're not going to die. Yeah.
Also, you're going to get your period. You don't know what that is yet.
Don't
but we're
ask
gonna
me
tell
more
you it's not
questions.
fun.
Yeah. Can't tell you anything more about it.
Or like if you start thinking you're seeing, your house is haunted, you might check your carbon monoxide just to be sure that it's actual haunting and not carbon monoxide. Like,
Yeah.
why don't we tell people these things?
I don't know. And that's why I respect middle school teachers, especially because I remember our middle school math teacher was like, by the way, you guys should be washing your feet. I don't know if anyone told you that, but you should. And a bunch of people in class were like, oh, yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, I should.
God.
Oh, good fact. Good,
Who was the
good note,
person
good
in
note.
class the teacher was like, oh, God.
I think she might have
The
just said it.
sandals kid.
Her like quirk was that she wore like interesting socks, like socks with patterns. So maybe it was just like, I don't know,
Feet were her thing.
on her mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But anyway, that was horrifying. Brandon, I did select 2 little presents for you for the end of this episode.
Little prezzies.
Yes. So the first one is going to be a ghostly cocktail experience. And the second one is a logical explanation for a hometown haunting.
Yay.
I'm delighted.
What little treats for our friend.
Little treat allowed us to wash away the memory of your recurring sleep paralysis. Okay. This comes from Sylvia, she, her, and it's titled, Your Cocktail Recommendation Gave Me a Ghost.
Oh, okay.
So, Brandon, wait for the second reason why I chose this one for you.
Okay.
Sylvia writes, Hi all. I rarely experience any paranormal, supernatural, or spooky stuff. So when your cocktail recommendation invoked a spirit in my home, I had to share it.
Whoops. Uh-oh. My bad. That's on me, folks.
I've been working my way through the full Spirits catalog, and I just listened to episode 312, Poltergeist, for Myth Movie Night. In the episode, you recommend a cocktail called the Green Ghost that only needs gin, green chartreuse, and lime juice.
Yes. And I would do it again.
Also very close to the last word, which is
Yes.
now I'm realizing a very threatening cocktail name.
And my favorite, Brandon. My favorite cocktail of all time. And like a lot of times you don't have maraschino liqueur on hand. So the Green Ghost is the perfect like comparison, you know?
Yeah. Joy's like, yes, it's the last word. Yes, it's the last call. Little soupçon of mystery with her cocktail. That's how she prefers.
I love a soupçon.
I've been searching for recipes that require green chartreuse since I bought it back for a themed birthday party last year.
Good.
So hearing about this cocktail was really exciting to me, and I started to make one for myself. I poured the gin into a glass and put the shot glass I used to measure the gin back on my counter. As I was putting away the gin and chatting with my friend Emily, who was hanging out with me, the shot glass started gliding across the counter toward the green chartreuse.
No. You got the 1 in 1 million bottle that has a ghost with it.
Now, guys, I know you're
fun.
both huge fans of chartreuse. Is this
Yes.
involved with the monks? Is it demonic? Is it ironic? Is it a branding strategy? What's happening here?
Well, Amanda, I think given the fact that it's made by 2 monks, probably not demonic. I'm going to go ahead right there and say not demonic.
Well, Julia, let me pitch you this idea. Maybe this was like they had like a demon exorcism situation where they had to like throw it in a bottle quickly, and they were like, "This is the only one that's close to us."
Oh, it was around,
around,
right?
yeah.
Because it was like the bottling facility.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Perhaps Brandon. I'll allow it.
Thanks.
Now, a couple times, like if your counter has like a bit of a pitch to it or a bit of a lean and it's wet, like things can slide. Like you can put a glass down, it slides, and you're like, "Oh no, my counter was wet." So that was what I was thinking. But let's continue.
Right.
I called Emily over to watch with me to make sure I wasn't just seeing things and placed the shot glass firmly back where I had originally put it. I joked with her that this cocktail must have evoked some spirit and that the spirit must love green chartreuse.
It was me.
As I jokingly welcomed the ghost, "Welcome, ghost, enjoy my chartreuse," the shot glass again slid toward the chartreuse bottle and stopped.
Here's the thing. You should not have been like, "Oh, ghost, enjoy this cocktail that I'm making for myself." Make the ghost its own cocktail.
Yeah,
There
for
you
sure.
go, Julia.
It's like putting milk out for a little stray cat.
Yes.
Yes.
Or like
Bread
a
out
brownie.
for a brownie. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't avoid. You gotta.
Gotta.
So, without touching the shot glass this time, I then invited the ghost to share my drink with me.
Mm-mm.
The glass proceeded to slide again, yet closer to the bottle of chartreuse.
No.
It's literally saying, "Make me one yourself.
Yes.
Make me
Yeah.
my own."
I'm
Pour some,
fucking
put it there.
thirsty. Come on, get it.
You've had this bottle for years, and now you've just found out about this recipe. Come on. So, I asked if they were a friendly ghost, and it slid again. Thoroughly freaked out, I grabbed the shot glass, finished making the cocktail, and cheersed to the ghost before drinking. Now, again, Julia, I totally agree with you. I think the move here is to make two, put one on the counter, cheers it, and then leave the room. Let
Correct.
the ghost enjoy their cocktail in peace. Let them decide if they're going to come join you in the other room or have some solitude, you know?
Mhm,
Yes,
mhm.
exactly.
I joked with Emily that the ghost must be friendly and maybe even a drinking buddy. I'm now referring them to Gigi in honor of the green ghost cocktail that first allowed them to communicate with me.
Cute.
Thank you for the cocktail recommendation, this new ghostly drinking buddy, and all of your great Spirits podcast shenanigans. I'll keep you updated if Gigi continues to haunt.
Just leave a shout out for Gigi every time you make a
Yep.
drink now. Just like, you don't even have to do a full cocktail for Gigi. You
Yeah.
know, like just a little bit of sip of liqueur and you're good to go.
I do have now a thought. What's worse, a regular ghost or a drunk ghost?
Interesting.
I mean, the answer is a drunk ghost, Brandon.
Yes, no, that's definitely worse because it's even more unpredictable. But I think you could luck into a ghost that is a sleepy drunk, that is a a funny drunk, but not in a way that like pranks you. Maybe a cuddly drunk, and then you get like all the ghostly chills. Yeah, all of them sound
Oh.
bad. Yep, nope, I've talked myself into that answer.
Amanda, I love watching you walk your way into the correct answer. It's always good.
Yeah, I do also want to say, so we've talked about the Jack Daniel's distillery, and do you guys know the term the angels share?
I do.
This is like the percentage of liquor or wine or something in a barrel that is being barrel aged or distilled that evaporates, and you count on a certain amount evaporating over time because that's like how molecules work, and that's called the angel share.
Also, a great bar in New York that is now closed. R.I.P. But
R.I.P.
Exactly.
yes.
R.I.P. Drinking with the angels now.
Yeah. I think what Julia is suggesting is simply the ghost's share. Just pour them a little bit, leave it out, let them enjoy it on their own time. And whether it evaporates or a ghost drank it, who knows?
Who can say?
Who can say?
Like oftentimes in a lot of cocktails, like you'll do like an absinthe rinse where like you pour a tiny bit of absinthe in the drink and then just like rotate the glass and drop it out. Just instead of like dropping that into the sink or whatever it is, like put it into a little glass and give it to your ghost, you know?
Yeah. And also, you'll probably catch any fruit flies in your house.
Exactly.
Very helpful. All right, Brandon. And then my final little treat for you is a short hometown logical haunting from Rowan, they, them.
Okay.
Shout out, Rowan.
Rowan writes, "Hey, spirits, I was just catching up and heard about some logical hauntings in episode 331, reminding me of my current situation at my mom's house. Ever since we moved here back around 2018, I've heard knocking on random doors and windows in the house, even when no one is home. Today happened to be one of those days. When I heard the knock, I quickly went to see if anyone was there, desperate for some kind of interaction, whether it be a spirit of some kind or even an intruder, frankly. I've been stuck inside the house for a week due to illness and had minimal contact with the outside world, so I'd gotten pretty lonely."
Okay, hold on. I understand the kind of like cabin fever situation of being stuck in the house for a while. I think we all do at this point.
Yeah.
but a week is not enough time to be like, oh, I hope it's an intruder.
I get it. I get it.
What?
But also I don't get it at all. When I reached the room, however, nothing was there. Disappointed, I was about to go back to my room when I heard a knock on the window. It turns out that what I had thought was someone knocking on our windows was in fact a magpie seeing its reflection and trying to attack it.
Oh.
I love a bird. That is so dumb.
Magpies are so silly.
Oh, they're so dumb. I love them so much.
If you didn't know, Australian magpies in particular are very territorial, and they're known for attacking anything that gets too close to its babies. This particular magpie tends to hang around our house and will attack any window with its reflection. I probably sometimes mistake the banging on the windows for doors as well, just with echoes and how this house is. Probably. If not, it's probably one of the several non-malicious spirits sharing the space with my family. As always, Rowan, you can't leave a little line like that and not update us, so we're gonna have to hear more about those other spirits, please.
Rowan, I'm going to suggest, as you have two sound designers on this podcast, I'm going to suggest you download some door sound effects, some door knocking, and then some window knocking, and train your ear to hear the difference, and then tell us whether that's actually a magpie or a magpie and a ghost, because I do need to know.
It's good.
Have we considered Ghost of a Magpie?
We have not.
Magpie long ago got stuck in house. Now is trying to get out and goes bang, bang, bang on door or bang, bang, bang on window.
Yeah, and instead of attacking its reflection, it is just attacking the door and trying to get out. Oh, that's sad.
Yeah.
A little sad, but also like consider.
It's possible. I do like the idea of a ghost bird. Very chaotic, very cute.
Ghost bird.
I would love to have a ghost bird as a pet. That'd be tight as hell.
Ghost bird. I mean, Brandon, you're almost there. Brandon has been befriending crows on his apartment building, and
exactly.
Someday, man, you might have ghost crow friends.
I mean, that day when we were recording JTP and like 7 of them showed up at once, it was kind of terrifying. I
heard the coffee ghosts cackle from very far away.
We were like, what's happening? Brandon comes back. He's like, there is 7 crows on my roof.
So many crows.
All right. So that was Rowan. And this was a Hometown Urban Legends episode. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us.
Yay! Thank you for having me. I am just realizing also that I do have a very strong urban legend that I do need to bring to you all that I will need to do some research and reading back on.
I would love that. Thank you. Give us a little tease.
So I'm trying to remember the exact name, but there was a family, I believe it was called like the Motley, which seems too convenient. But they had like a house that was kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Like there were no other houses around.
Texas sounds normal.
Yeah.
Was there a cave system attached to the house?
There was not. But what they did have, Julia, was a graveyard in front of their house, a family graveyard. And
sure,
there were lots of rumors about what was buried in that graveyard. So I'll have to tell you the full tale.
Incredible. Brandon, thank you so much. If people want to find you and what you do on the internet, I know you don't exist a lot on social media, but where can they find it? Social media ghost. Where can they find your stuff, though?
You can listen to Join the Party. That's where me and Julia and Amanda are all on. And otherwise, listen to other multitude shows. And also check out stuff by one Lauren Shippen.
Wow. Who is that, Brandon?
I wonder if there's any relation to the coffee
that haunts your house.
It is a ghost that haunts my house and also speaks. What's the name of the dot language?
Morse code? The dot language?
All right, that's staying in. That's good. That's good.
Oh, yeah.
on a show called Breaker Whiskey. Go check that out.
I was about to say, the Coffee Ghost just put out a new show called Breaker Whiskey. It's very good. Go check it out.
Yeah.
And if you enjoy audio hauntings, I gotta listen to Join the Party, the theme song of our current campaign, which Brandon wrote the music to and Eric wrote the words to, and Julia sings on, is incredibly good and haunting and will get stuck in your head, which is a kind of haunting if you think about it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
If you like spooky sea shanties.
We got you. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for joining us. And everybody, when you hear ghost birds knocking on the inside of your walls,
stay creepy.
Stay cool.